Hello, everyone. In this video, I want to just show a project they worked on many, many, many years ago because I think it relates to this concept of beauty and value and pattern and scale and sort of all these fun things tied together in an example that I did. Now, I got to say again, this was so long ago, you can see we didn't even do renders of it. We just sort of took 3D wireframes and rendered the wall a little bit in Illustrator or Photoshop to show it cutting through just because there wasn't a need to for this project. And this is all I have left. I mean, I did these construction documents. I wasn't the primary designer. I wasn't the partner in charge, by the way. I did this at a firm called Becker Winston Architects many, many years ago. But I did a lot of these sections and details working with the engineer. I did a lot of little tweaks along the way and sort of really applied some of this theory even way back then. And this is all I have left of this project. It sort of is carried through this portfolio here. And but I think it's an interesting story about a project, and it's an interesting story about beauty and pattern. So the first thing to note is obviously there's the client that we had a lot of money and they could build an expensive house. The orange here was sort of earth colored stone. It was a big house, used expensive materials, did things structurally that just were complex, and that alone, value equals beauty. That was going to make it really interesting and something to talk about. But into it, you can see that the client came to us, and actually you can see right here is the primary house is right here. There's some other things, site things, and other outbuildings along here we see in the plan as well. We can see it's based on this idea of a pentagon, which is right there in the center. And she came to us with this dream that she had to have this pentagon home. And right there, for me, that's really interesting from pattern point of view. So for example, pentagons obviously can make patterns; they're basic geometric forms. But furthermore, if you didn't know, pentagons are actually built off of the golden ratio, the golden section, however you want to call it, in its relation to size. So there's a very specific set of proportion and harmony rules that the pentagon also related to. So you had a very specific shape and you have a very specific built-in set of patterns and scales that could be built off of this. So as we went, I sort of played those up. If I had to make a decision, I always went back to the golden ratio would be the next rational proportion that something might be in as it relates to each other. So there's a way of bringing in not just the value of materials and the expense, but also patterns and beauty in that sense. Now, of course, one of the reasons why I only have drawings for this project is because this project was never built. It was under construction at one point in time, but I don't want to give too much away. I'll just say that the community that this was going to be located in did some nefarious things, and as a result, the owner decided that they didn't want to be a part of that community and stopped construction, deconstructed it actually, and moved somewhere else. But it was a fun project to be on. I think really sort of um, looks at some of these concepts that we're looking at in an interesting light. I want to one more thing. I'm going to put in one more thing here at the end. Actually, when we were working on this long ago, I was doing a lot of the computer stuff for the company and managing that stuff that I was working for at the time, and I got a call from a small company called Revit. And Revit, if you're an architect, you know what that is. This is before Autodesk and AutoCAD had bought it. They were a startup company, and they kind of look at this fancy new software developing, blah 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 blah. And anyway, the partners and associates at the firm I was working for said, "Hey, this is cool. Should we test it out? What do we want to do?" And so the guy who was working on this project is like, "You know what? If they can build this house in Revit, we will purchase Revit." Now they couldn't at the time, they couldn't build this in Revit. Maybe it would have been possible. I don't want to say it would have been impossible to build in Revit at the time. It certainly would be possible now, uh, decades later. Uh, but at the time, they didn't want to take the time. They sort of like were interested, like, yeah, send us some stuff, but it would have taken them far too long if they could have done it. I'm not sure they really could have at the time. So that firm at that time did not get Revit because you know what, this was complex, but those core tools in AutoCAD. I think we actually even modeled this in 3D Max as the modeling that we did here. This is sort of before SketchUp really took over everything in terms of modeling as well. So, but any of those core tools, they're built off of geometric principles, and that's what makes it possible to design like this. So I thought this is a fun project to share that relates geometry, patterns, beauty, scale, golden ratio, and expense all into architecture and beauty.